everyone, and welcome to this episode, the digital one, of the Women Talking About Learning podcast. I'm Andrew Jacobs. We were really looking forward to recording this topic and having guests that have the experiences in successfully navigating the dynamic tech industry, and we're thrilled to be joined by three successful women leaders in the digital technology space. Our first guest is Rita Sukrit. Rita has been in learning and development for more than 20 years. Rita collaborates with global clients to align their business goals with learning solutions. And throughout her career, she's worked in many industries, including not-for-profit, chemical, finance, oil and gas, and professional services. She's lived and worked in Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Caribbean, and at home in Canada. And Rita's recent projects include digital learning solutions, AI in learning, and leadership development. Our second guest is Michelle Camrath-Fields. Michelle is a Chief Marketing Officer with over 20 years of executive experience in marketing and e-commerce. She specialises in strategic guidance for digital transformation, brand development, and campaign execution. Michelle has successfully partnered with renowned brands like Ashley Furniture, Eddie Bauer, Nike, Napster.com, and John Deere. Her expertise makes her a trusted advisor for businesses seeking to enhance their marketing strategies. Our third guest is Tessa Hilson-Greener. Tessa is a prominent thought leader in AI for HR, workforce development, leadership, and business innovation. As the CEO of AI Capability, she pioneers the integration of AI in HR, enhancing global HR functions and leadership strategies with psychological insights. She emphasizes ethical AI development in HR, highlighting the need for human oversight to mitigate risks such as bias and privacy issues. Tessa advocates for AI to support, not replace human roles, ensuring that AI enhances rather than undermines the workforce. As always, we don't have a script, narrative, or list of topics to be covered, and this episode goes through so many bases. Sit back and enjoy this episode, which we recorded in May 2024. This is Women Talking About Learning. This is Rita, Michelle, and Tessa talking about digital.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Camrath-Fields, and I am a Chief Marketing Officer, and currently I am a fractional CMO, and I am here to talk about digital marketing. And the reason I wanted to talk about digital marketing today is because it is growing, changing, and evolving so much with AI and every other technology. But I would love to understand, Rita, why are you here today?
Wow. Hi, Michelle. I'm really glad to be here with you and Tess as well. I love the topic of digital, and I've been in learning and development quite many years, more than 25 years to be honest. And watching the evolution of learning from where it started way back when and to where we are today, and the AI component, I think it's just changing the whole dynamics and everything about what we've done, what we're doing. And I think this could become our new best friend if we embrace it in the right way. But if we don't use it in the right way, it could become our worst enemy. Tess, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm here today to talk about AI and to talk about learning. And I agree with you. I think that where I think we need to is to be able to understand AI in terms of how we regulate it to start with, and then understand where it can be used in applications. And I think to start small and scale up is really important. I think keep control and don't go mad trying to buy everything that's got AI in front of it. Know what you want it for. And I think I use it a lot, to be honest. So I think it can be a wonderful asset, but again, I think it needs to be carefully managed.
Yeah. If I could just, I was reading recently, I think it was an article from McKinsey, and it was talking about the stats and how the workforce is made up today. And we talked about 40% of the workforce, people coming into the workforce, 40% are in new roles. So that's quite high. And then what was even more interesting was 50 to 70% of headcount in businesses that joined companies after the post-pandemic. They are also, that's a high number of people that's coming back to the workforce, and they're coming in, and I feel like it's overwhelming for them, not only to adjust, but to adapt, but also bringing in these digital tools that we are introducing, because we don't have that experience. We've been in the workforce many, many years. But what about these other, I guess, genre of people coming in? It must be even more challenging for them and more daunting, I would imagine.
I agree. And I think the trouble is that companies have really cut back on onboarding or pre-onboarding in companies. And I think that with AI, that is something that you can address before people even join the organization. But I do think it's been a big weakness in organizations. I've joined a lot of organizations where I've literally been given a laptop and a desk, and there you go. And I think that's a case in a lot of companies, and I think that's something that isn't a great welcome when you arrive. It's quite sink or swim, really.
Right. And I think, with the pandemic, people were working remotely, but now as we're getting back to the office, I think we need to, as women leaders, really start focusing in on building those relationships with one-to-one. And, with AI, you kind of lose that personal touch. And so even though it might be more efficient, I think there is something to be said for, keeping that value of human, if that makes sense. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Completely agree. Especially when I think about it, because I can safely say we're all in leadership roles in our career where we are today. And as leaders, it is our responsibility to figure out what AI elements we can include or bring in or introduce into our workplace. And that's the futurizing side of it. But then, as leaders, we also have to bring in the human side. Like, how are we going to make the two come together and become one or seamless? Because, we go back to that old saying, today's generation in the workplace, if they're not happy, or if the ethics and values don't align, they will not hesitate to leave. Maybe the traditionalists or the baby boomers might have stuck around a little bit longer, but the generation today, there's a lot to deal with and to contend with, and balancing the futurization, which is the AI elements, and the humanizing, which is the wellness, all that stuff that came out during the pandemic. Where's finding the right balance is so challenging.
I think it's interesting, though, that there was an article recently. A lot of research has been done that Gen Z, and I don't like using generation stuff, but that they don't answer their phones, that they prefer to text. So I think, so it's quite interesting that they don't have that human connection other than through a text. So I think there could be a case for having AI enabling them to have conversations, if you know what I mean, rather than, to me, it's not about anything that we do. We need to have a way of overseeing and managing it and making sure everything's working and everyone's connecting as they should. I think that's the danger. If you plug AI in and walk away from it, then you're not doing the job. I think you need to be overseeing it, monitoring it, make sure it's working, and use it in areas where there's a lot of repetition, like admin, but have it in a way that it's supporting you to be able to do other things, like work with people face to face going forward.
Right. I think to your point about using it for more menial tasks, I guess, in digital marketing, it's the same thing where it's like, maybe we don't need to, if we use AI, for example, for copywriting or for putting up plans, we can use AI as an inspirational tool. But to your point, it's all about as a guideline, but not an end all be all. We need to incorporate that human oversight and that human, I guess you'd say, human touch to the marketing. And, especially in digital, what I found is, I've done marketing automation or, suggested selling or, things like that on websites. And yes, technology is there and yes, it's great, but sometimes it's off. You need to tweak it and optimize it. So I love, the idea of using AI as a tool in digital, but not the end all be all, because I don't think it's perfect yet. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think a really good example is in banking. I've worked in banking where you've had a lot of regulatory courses to do, and people have designed them, but they've kind of just left them to run, and they're quite boring. And I think having more of an interaction with like AI can be better, because you can the courses that you do, you can actually answer the questions at the end, and then go back and keep answering until you get 100%. I think with AI, it's much more intuitive. There's also an AI teacher now that can interact with you, and can start to have conversations and say, no, that's not quite right. Where do you think this could be? Getting people much more excited and interested and engaged. I think there's an opportunity to bring that in, but with the human touch, absolutely.
One of the things we're looking to use the AI for is with data. I mean, maybe from both of your experiences, from my experiences, we have been plagued by data, not having good data, not being able to share data. Some departments do it well, some do it not so well, some don't even do it at all. But one of the things I think with AI, we're going to have to think differently. I heard this in a session, a webinar I attended recently, and the gentleman really hit home with when he talked about, we're in a situation, or we live in a world where everything is boundaryless, work, travel, everything. So why can't we bring that concept into our own organization and have boundaryless data? Why should it just be in one home or one domain, one function, one not? Because if we're going to make AI work for us, we need to give it good, clean, very, very, up to date current data. But that has to come in collectively, because it's not going to work in silos. So I think this is another area too, where we've started looking at it with clients from that vein. If you've got silos, it's not going to work. But yes, if you want to use the AI, you've got to give to get.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean,
it's true. And I think.
Oh, go ahead, Ted.
No, I was just agreeing. I think you're absolutely right about the data. I think, we are terrible at using data in a lot of organizations. And I think that it's a great opportunity to clean up our act and start to use data more effectively. The only constraint is that legislation and GDPR and all of that does tend to limit the countrywide use of it. But, there are great opportunities there, definitely, going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I liked what you said, Rita, about using kind of data as a more holistic view of the customer journey, and really focusing in on using that data to not think, just like you were saying, in your silo. Because, as marketers, it's really easy to focus in on, oh, this is my data set and this is it and this is it. But you really need to think larger and broader in what you're looking at, if that makes sense. And I think AI can help with that as well. And so I think it's really exciting about where digital is going and how we can use AI to help us with that.
There is synthesized data now, so data can be taken out of where it is and put somewhere so it can be synthesized anonymously. So there is a lot of different things around data coming up or being developed, which is interesting.
One of the observations I made, and I've been doing this a very long time, in L&D back in the early day, as early as far back, even if you go 20, 25, 30 years ago, it wasn't really a thing that we did, for L&D people. We didn't really, if people did Kirkpatrick levels 1 and 2 evaluation, they were like, oh, good, we've got a complete program here. But nobody was really doing the supporting transfer of knowledge, which is the third, and the ROI, the return on investment aspect. So we never really learned how to use data effectively, or to take that data and turn it into potential learning solutions. And I'm so happy that AI is coming into the fold, because it could do that for us if we give it good data. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense to you. But we were never taught that. And having said that, all things seriously though, we need to even invest in our L&D community and get them skilled on looking at this data and what does this data mean? Because if we can't tell a story to stakeholders or execs, we're not going to be able to continue showing value or impact of learning. That's kind of like my 2 cents there.
like yourself, I started off learning how to do learning and development. We were taught as teachers on how to structure, develop training and write training and understand training needs analysis and do in a structured way. So I'm surprised nowadays there's so many shortcuts to how training's put together, because it's a little bit all over the place. And I always thought we took our learners on a journey, understanding how they like to learn and all that good, gorgeous stuff that we do. I think the same is the same with e-learning. If you remember, I remember when that came out, everyone was like, "We're going to lose our jobs. E-learning is going to replace us." But what tended to happen is, if the ones that embraced e-learning understood it, made it into a blended solution. And I think they did really well. And I think that's the case with AI. You need to understand it, blend it in, use it where it's appropriate, but don't lose the human element of it, because it's there to help. It's not there to take over your work.
And I think, from a digital perspective, I think marketing is turning more into storytelling and more into, effectively cutting through the data, but making it so it's digestible into a story form so we can educate our customers. And if we add value by educating our customers, I think that's how we're going to retain them. I think that's how we're going to, get them to spend more money with us and, have a better brand sentiment, overall.
Not so long ago, maybe it was during the pandemic or around that time, when I first heard about we should be marketing learning, I'm like, what? That is like you're telling me to put apples and pears together, oranges together, like it doesn't. But then after listened to it and attended more and more sessions and hearing the concepts, and because no, the first area, one of the first departments to be cut is L&D, because we could never show our worth, our value, the impact. And when someone said to be about marketing and learning, I thought, well, this person had way too much to drink this morning or something like that. But really, it makes good sense, right? Doesn't it? You market everything else. You market products, service. Yeah, why wouldn't you market their?
I love marketing L&D, to be honest. I think it has to look like a good product, be quality, be positioned correctly. So I think that's perfect to market L&D. And I think that if you think about the skills that we give people in training, there's very little skills in marketing, isn't there? I mean, there's everything else around understanding adult learning and everything else, but not so much around the quality and the product you're developing and how you're going to market it and where you're going to position it in the organization, what's the return on investment, all that side of it would be fabulous. We have to get Michelle to give us a lesson.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'll be there.
But I also, in listening to us talk is, as we're learning, and Rita, you had mentioned something earlier about new employees. I mean, really, marketing should be kind of a team sport, if that makes sense, where it's not just, I, as a marketer, teaching other marketers about the business or teaching them about the industry. It should be a cross channel across, craft learning with, within everybody within the organization. I think it's super important as, you're bringing up the newer people within the organization, whether they're new as in they started today or new as in new to a career post, secondary education. So I think it's really fascinating about how we need to collaborate and create more of a collaborative culture with that. So, I think it's kind of interesting. So what do you guys think?
Going off on a different tangent from what you're saying, but definitely creating the right culture. But I think where we are now and with the digital impact and all the AI, chat GPT and all that, I think it's opening up opportunities for L&D to create new models and introduce new concepts, different ways to do things, because the old way is not going to cut it. And if you try to force fit something into where we have today, it's not going to work. And this worries me to some degree, because I don't know about for you both, but for myself, sometimes we look at someone's work or someone, and we could see they've only done one thing and they've done one thing and this is all they know. And when we're asking them to do something outside, excuse me, you can tell, sorry, I just got a frog in my throat. And when we're asking them to do something innovative or think differently or can become creative, they just can't because they're so stunted in what they've done. They can't see or think or grow outside of what they've done. And I think it comes with years and years of experience or different projects or working on different areas of L&D. And this is where we with AI today, if we really don't understand it and see where it's going, how do we know when we apply AI and human or AI only or human only or vice versa? Like how do we create those kind of buckets for people?
Yeah, I mean, most organisations should set up an AI committee anyway, and have a team that look at all the activities that are going on around AI, so they can start to make sure everybody's involved and they're keeping track of everything. Because I want to mention about IP as well, because that's really important on the digital AI side at the moment. And I'm sure Michelle and Rita's probably got some views on that. But I do agree with you. I think that people like just-in-time learning now. People want a really quick solution. They just want to just go onto YouTube, Google what they want to see and get an answer to it. So running big, long courses isn't going to cut it with people anymore. So we need a different way of delivering to people that are so busy, have so much going on in their heads. They just want a solution at the touch of, at the end of their fingers. So I think it is important really that AI is utilised effectively.
Yeah, I think, platforms like TikTok, where it's, or even Instagram, where it's a 30-second snippet of, hey, this is how you post on social media or whatever the topic may be. We've been now conditioned as humans that we need to, make it in snippet forms, if that makes sense, of, learning. And I think that's really fascinating because, in marketing, at least, we are kind of taught you need to embrace experimentation. You need to try things, things fail all the time. So you got to constantly try, fail, and then eventually something will succeed. And, I think from a learning perspective, what you're saying is spot on, where we need to try and experiment and kind of see what the new learning model is going to be.
I was going to say, from the data perspective, people when people adopt an LMS and they put it into the organization, most people use it as a library just to have a quick look at things that they want answers for, like where do I do this on Excel or where do I do that on Microsoft or wherever. And most people now turn to YouTube. They go in there, they look up something, someone's put a video on how to fix your car or how to fix a tap or, whatever you're looking for. And I think that's how we are now. That's how we're conditioned, is to get the answer and implement it.
And people's attention span is just reduced, seriously reduced. And having these snippets or nuggets or chunks of learning is really the way of the future. And I think with the technology we have, we can do quite a lot in that little nugget of information. And the other aspect with that is that in the flow of work, we can't afford to take people out of their jobs for a week or 4 days or 3 days or 5 days. And the beauty about this is we're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for mastery on the job. And once you get mastery, then you could go to the next level where you can move along that scale to get them confident and doing the job that we actually need them to do. So the whole trend of learning. But what I don't mind where we are now and what we're doing with learning. I think it's fabulous because it's making it relatable to the Gen Zs and the Ys that's in the workplace. What I still think we need to maintain is the learning principles, the adult learning principles, the
Yeah.
heutagogy or the andragogy. We cannot say it's pedagogical because that's academic, and the two are very different. I still feel like we need to understand that, and people who fall into the job don't really understand. Like we spend years studying adult learning principles and so on, and it takes away because when you see something like they write maybe an objective and use understand and know, it's like, oh, they're me, right? This is very amateurish, but only we know that because we've gone through the traditional way of studying, applying theory, applying practical, etc. And then somebody comes in and they're using tools from AI and it's telling them to do this, but you're missing that adult learning principles that's key for the course or for the learning experience.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is as well is that maybe those adult learning principles are just more condensed now in terms of how people use them. So rather than writing them as a course, it's using them because they're really there to help the learner go through a journey. And if they're getting to the right solution, then they are still doing that. Because it's starting with the learning objectives, and then they're going through being signposted and they get into the end and they're achieving their learning objectives. So if they're doing that and that is done in a 30-second snippet, then maybe it's just not as obvious to people, but the job's done, really.
And so to relate this back to, marketing, because that's my favorite subject, is,
No.
I think there is a lot of comparison between, learning models and marketing. And specifically, if marketing is evolving into the education type of, I guess, way to market, we as, marketing leaders, or we as digital leaders, we need to start thinking about how do we apply that to our marketing. If everyone wants to learn in bite-sized pieces, does it make sense to apply that to all of the marketing channels that we're in? Like you were saying, for example, if we wanted a white paper, does the white paper need to be 50 pages long? Probably not. It maybe needs to be 1 page long because that's all people have attention span for, or a 10-second video or whatever on the subject at hand. And I think as you were looking at,
I think you'd have one learning objective and then a series of ways to get to that learning objective in bite-sized chunks all the way through. So I think that it's still the same format.
I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Michelle. In learning, we do customer journey maps or paths. How does that work with your marketing side of things? Like, do you have like a journey map of a customer? Like what Google does or digitally. How does that work then? How would that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least from my perspective, what I would do is, or have done is, create kind of those personas and work on how would that persona identify with the brand and also intake the brand. So if they're at the beginning of the sales funnel or at the end or the middle or whatever the case might be, how do they digest that information? And, maybe initially they want to really work on understanding. So they're, trying to consume a bunch of information before they make a purchase, the learning mode. So it's, creating that digestible content in that mode, if that makes sense.
And how would you measure that? How would you know that they've actually digested it? By the numbers of stuff that's bought, or?
Well, I think there's data that could help discern that. Number one, if we looked at, time on site, if it's on the website, you can look at, what is the page flow that they work through the website, mapping, did they actually click to the next article to learn, or did they just abandon? And, you can also, through metrics kind of watch that. And I think going back to the experimentation, it's, see what the behavior is and then start trying to optimize it and doing A/B testing and learning through that, if that makes sense.
I wanted to, when it comes to data, right? I'll just come back to data because of what you just said, Michelle. Well, you've got Google that have these apps that follow people on the internet and stuff, and they collect heaps and tons of data, and it's probably good data too, because suddenly I'm getting on my Netflix, oh, you watched this movie. What are your thoughts on it? I'm like, whoa, that's a bit too close to home. But then we don't have that kind of structure in our L&D. We don't have that robust kind of data. I mean, Tess, I don't know if you've or Michelle, like how.
Yeah, you would in your the learning management system would track. I mean, not that sort of nuanced level of what they've watched on television. It would be quite scary if they could do that.
But but what Michelle was saying, learning today is so informal and so relaxed and so casual. And you even mentioned YouTube, right? And LMS is only tracking courses that you've taken. What about the other way we're learning? You know, when we're on the internet or you were looking at a YouTube video or things like that. Like we need an LXP, of course, but the data is just not. We're not collecting data correctly, or we're not using the data. Something's amiss. Mm.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. I mean, if you look at a person, if you have the persona, like Michelle said about a person, which is how we actually set up recruitment campaigns in HR, you set up personas of people that you're looking for. So it's very similar. We're kind of doing the marketing type approach through recruitment. So I would recommend doing that in learning and development with employees, really.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking this is going to be a huge challenge for maybe everyone, not just us in L&D. I think thinking going forward, especially with the digital future we're all facing, and it'd be interesting to see. You know, obviously, the Google and Meta and X, and they're probably on top of this because these are the platforms they're using that they could collect robust and really good data. But for the other average companies that are not even clued into this yet.
There's a lot of data on the HR side that there is available. And I think that with AI, we can start to look at performance management trends, engagement trends. There's tools now in AI where, when people gather engagement data, and there's a lot of free text comments, those comments can actually be calculated, used by AI, and they can produce reports that are very nuanced about how people have responded and recommendations from that are a little bit closer to what people are saying rather than interpreted by someone who's just put it onto an Excel spreadsheet. So there's lots of more intuitive AI tools now, which can be much closer to what people are looking at and how they're living their daily lives and what sort of learning expectations they have. And the thing is, our workforce is changing. Our workforce is expecting us to be able to deliver AI solutions to them and to deliver, answers to questions quicker. So it's not a case of if it's going to happen; it's just going to be how and when it happens. And the people that embrace it will be the ones that deliver the good solutions with.
Yeah. I would say the whole concept of the worker, and the workplace are changing. It's all three.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been looking at HR from now 10 years in the future, what the HR department will look like, what the workforce will be like. And I'm sure a lot of us are doing that sort of mapping at the moment to see where things are going. And I think, again, with learning, where will learning be going? What expectations will the workforce have of learning? Will it be called learning? Will it be something else? There's so many great things coming.
Yeah, Michelle, where would marketing be going, you think? I mean, you've already done digital, you've been doing digital. Yeah, where do you see it going then?
Yeah, I mean, at least I'm going to give an example of what I'm kind of seeing out in the field. So before we used to have, or we still have CRM tools or, customer management tools. And, previously, like if you did a marketing automation plan or, a journey through that, it was like, okay, we need to can this type of email if they respond at all, right? And it's very canned. But what AI has started doing is it can morph that response and tailor it towards how the customer behaves. And I think that's really fascinating because, all of our tools in digital are going to be using some sort of AI and then morphing into a more tailored approach to how the customer or the student or whoever behaves. And I think that's really fascinating because, as marketers or people in digital or in HR, you know it's you also need to kind of think, okay, how do we still make this humanistic? As do you know what I mean? Just because AI can write these responses back in a CRM doesn't make sense of what they're actually saying. And how do we feed that to help it?
That's a really good point, actually. I was looking at some recruitment software the other day, AI software, and you can you have like a sales funnel. You have all the aspects that go through the recruitment process, and it's interesting because again, the AI will write the emails and respond to people and respond back to them in a way that changes towards them how they're responding as well. So it's not that standard flat email you get when you've applied for a job. Um, and it was interesting that you still had the human oversight, but instead of writing personally 50 emails, you had somebody doing that for you. And I think that's a really good example of where it can help you. But as a human, you are in charge then. You're looking at this thinking, I think I need to do a little bit more over there, or I need to get these people more involved. And it also downloaded all of your contacts on LinkedIn. So if you had 10,000 contacts, it drew them down into this database so that you could actually then start to contact people in there and build up a relationship with them, and be more connected to them than you would normally do. So it really took things up to a different level.
Yeah.
Really,
I also feel like we really need to upskill our people leadership as well, because most of them, like L&D, probably don't know how to use or maximize or read and interpret data or obtain it or manipulate. They probably don't. And it's not a negative comment, it's probably a reality statement I'm making. And we also need, us to become able to make sense of data. We need to connect the dots with it so that when we connect the dots, here's, the data, this is what we've come to see, and here's what how we solution this. I think we need to do that, and we're not there, and we're not going to be there overnight. This is going to take quite a while, quite some time to figure out.
I think a really good point that you're making about data is that normally how data is used in organizations is you have a data team and you go to that data person and say, I want to know how many hires we've had or blah, 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 give me that information. And then a report sent to you, and there's not really much involvement. I think if that person wasn't there and you had to download those reports and to start to understand the data and analyze it, it would make people be much more data savvy than they are at the moment. So I think it's a case of giving people, taking away that person who's been doing that, and then sharing it with everybody as a responsibility to start, because that's what you're going to have to do with AI. You're going to have to keep on top of it.
Well, this is what I talked about earlier when I said boundaryless. Michelle, you were going to say something and I cut you off. My bad.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, one thing with AI is everything that we know it today is evolving in real time. And from a learning perspective, us as leaders, us as, people of management, I guess you'd say, is we need to make sure that we are giving learning tools to everybody within the organization to evolve. So, for example, Copilot, that is, Microsoft has launched and evolved. It's, yes, I know how to do PowerPoint, but no, I don't know how to use it in Copilot now because there's a lot of AI tools that will make it so much faster. And so, how are we going to constantly help the organization evolve and learn and move through that? So I think it's very fascinating where we're at today, and I think it's just going to accelerate and go so much faster. And I think learning needs to be almost in soon to be hyper mode where we constantly, as professionals need to learn because we're going to have to try to keep up with all of this.
I love when you say co-pilot because, oh, sorry, when you say co-pilot, because that's exactly what it is. You're not going to eliminate the human aspect. It's a
Yeah.
co-pilot. You need that human intervention. So thank you for saying that. Sorry, Tess.
No, I was just going to say, I'm chatting to someone at the moment who has designed a AI teacher who will actually interact with children who are doing their homework and things like that. So, and this has been designed by a neuroscience psychologist. It's quite fascinating. So I do think there are a lot of things being developed at the moment that you could use to train people in the organisation as well. It's just a case of organisations taking the first step, because a lot of companies, a lot of people are using ChatGPT-4 at the moment. A lot of people are using it, understand it. That's where to start, really. And if they are using that, then they're already using AI. So it's just a case of expanding that knowledge into different solutions that you're going to bring into the organization.
Or having a culture where it's digitally progressive as well. If your leaders are using
Yeah.
it and encouraging you to use it, that's a plus. It's not a negative.
I mean, most manual workers use a lot of technology, handheld technology. So they do have just-in-time learning. So they do have a lot of access to this. So I speak to a lot of companies all over the world, and in countries that you wouldn't think would be using technology are using it quite a lot. So I think that there's a great hunger for this at the moment, to be able to do things quicker and smarter, because everybody, since is under a lot of pressure at work. There's been a lot of shrinkage in the workforce, and people are doing a lot more different jobs now. So I think they really want a way of getting rid of the sort of repetitive work and be able to focus on other parts of the work that they're doing.
And it's no new concept. Jobs evolve. I mean, look at jobs from the 60s. Yeah, exactly, right? The 70s, even to 2000s. I remember COBOL when it was going over programming for millennium, the 2000, because in 1999. And it's like, this is the nature of existence. It's going to evolve. So I'm very, very excited to see where it's going to go.
So one of the things, as we're kind of ending here is, from a marketing perspective, it is super important to just dive in. I recently was at a conference and there was about AI, and it was kind of segmented. The audience was part of the audience dove in, was all in, really into learning. And then other portions of the audience were like, oh, I tried it. It really didn't work. And so I'm going to wait until it's better. Well, you can't do that because it's evolving so quickly that, us as leaders, I think we need to, encourage people to dive in and really just start and get going and just begin, because that's how you learn. Really, it's more immersive, I think, because I don't think anyone is perfect at any of it. And if you are today, tomorrow it'll be changed. So you need to just be adaptive, right?
For me, I think about 85% of organizations, of what McKinsey quotes, they're planning to increase adoption of technologies over the next 5 years, including AI. And it's our responsibility to understand the benefits and the drawbacks of using this in the workplace. I also feel that it's major upskilling for everyone, not just L&D, marketing, leadership. It's really everyone, even the employees, because organizations are becoming more and more flatline, and we're kind of seeing ourselves as one. And that boundaryless concept, that I really love it. Countries are boundaryless. Why aren't organizations? Let's break down those silos. Let's get rid of it. As those are my final thoughts there.
I think with AI that everybody's using it in some form or another at the moment, to be honest. Most people are using ChatGPT in one form or another. Most people are gamers, so they go online and they use technology. I think it's thinking smartly about how practically can we bring this solution into an organization, and then getting people to use those applications so they adopt them and making it as easy as possible.
Well, I feel like I learned a lot today from you two women. And I feel like try and experiment a little bit more about the learning. I didn't really think about how marketing and learning and HR could really cross-pollinate as much as what we talked about today. So I think it's fascinating. I think, so I have a lot to think about and to implement.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you, Michelle and Tess, and I'm hoping we'll do this very soon. I'm looking forward to it next time.
Yes.
Me too. It's been great. I've really enjoyed just our conversation earlier and our conversation now has been amazing. I feel like I've made 2 really good new friends now. It's been nice talking to you today.
Until next time, bye.
Yeah, bye.
As we navigate a rapidly changing digital world, it's clear that embracing new technologies like AI while maintaining a human touch is crucial for future success. I loved how this conversation was brilliant in identifying some key themes we need to think about for the future, especially data, marketing, and their intersection with learning and development. A huge thank you to our guests, Michelle, Rita and Tess, for sharing their valuable perspectives and experiences. You'll find all their details in the show notes, along with links to the subjects they talked about. If you enjoyed the episode, please do subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. It really does make a difference to help people find us. We're back in a couple of weeks, and next time it's the leadership one. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.